had to answer one of the weirdest questions a White House press secretary has ever been asked.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No.
It started with what sounded like one of the strangest questions ever asked in a White House press briefing. A reporter leaned forward, voice steady but laced with disbelief, and asked whether President Donald Trump actually wanted to execute members of Congress. The question stemmed from Trump's recent sharp criticism of a group of Democratic lawmakers, 6 in total, many of them military veterans, who had released a video urging service members and intelligence personnel to remain loyal to the Constitution above all else. Trump had labeled their actions as dangerous, seditious, and even suggested such behavior could be punishable by death. The briefing room fell into a brief, tense silence as cameras captured every reaction. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, responded quickly and clearly. No, she said firmly. She explained that the president was not calling for the execution of lawmakers. Instead, he was highlighting what he viewed as a serious threat to military discipline and constitutional order. On the surface, it seemed like a routine clarification, the kind of back and forth that happens regularly in Washington. For a moment, many assumed the unusual exchange would fade away, swallowed by the constant flow of political news and social media outrage. But later that night, the moment took on a new life. On his late-night show, Jimmy Kimmel refused to treat it as just another fleeting headline or quick joke. He didn't rush through the clip with a sarcastic remark and move on. Instead, he slowed everything down deliberately, turning the segment into something more thoughtful and structured. He played the original White House briefing footage, the reporter's pointed question, Leavitt's direct denial, and the context of Trump's strong words. Then he paused, letting the audience absorb it. At first, the studio crowd laughed, the natural reaction to the absurdity of the topic on a comedy show. But Kimmel didn't stop there. He replayed the clip, this time placing Trump's original statements side by side with Leavitt's explanation. The contrast hung in the air. What had sounded like heated political rhetoric in isolation began to feel different when examined closely. The audience's laughter gradually changed in tone. It was no longer just a...
It was a tough day for Trump, too. You know, he lost a whole hour of rage posting yesterday. This guy, I don't know what kind of magic cocoon the devil gave him when they made that deal, but somehow he manages to do everything wrong, just rolls right off.
Amusement. It carried a hint of recognition, as if people were starting to see layers they hadn't noticed before. This is where the segment became significant. It stopped being only about one unusual press briefing question. It transformed into an exploration of a larger pattern in political communication. Kimmel didn't need dramatic accusations or conspiracy theories. He simply showed the cycle again and again, a strong, provocative statement from Trump, public backlash or confusion, followed by an explanation from his team that it was rhetorical, exaggerated, or just a joke. When viewed one at a time, each instance could be dismissed as typical political drama. But when placed together, the repetition made the pattern impossible to ignore. Kimmel continued building the case methodically. He brought up several recent examples where Trump had used strong language, calling out opponents, criticizing institutions, or warning about perceived dangers, only for aides to later walk back the intensity by framing it as hyperbole or humor. Each time the explanation followed the same rhythm. It was just a joke. He didn't mean it literally, or the media is taking it out of context. Kimmel pointed this out plainly. If every serious-sounding statement only becomes a joke after people push back, he said, then maybe it stops being a joke and starts being something else entirely. The line landed powerfully. The audience laughed, but many also nodded, sensing the deeper point about consistency in messaging. The focus then shifted to Karoline Leavitt herself. Kimmel did not attack her personally. Instead, he presented her as the person tasked with managing the fallout. Clip after clip showed Leavitt at the podium, speaking clearly and quickly, defending the president's intent, redirecting attention to the lawmaker's video, and insisting that critics were focusing on the wrong issue. She emphasized accountability over any literal threat of extreme punishment. On paper, her responses sounded professional and composed, exactly what a press secretary is expected to deliver under pressure. Yet when these explanations were placed directly next to Trump's unfiltered original comments, the gap became more visible. Kimmel let the juxtapositions speak for themselves, using minimal extra commentary. The audience's reaction evolved once again, from simple laughter to a more thoughtful recognition of the dynamic at play. Trump created the bold headlines and provocative posts. Leavitt had to step in front of the cameras to explain, soften, and reframe them. This wasn't just about what was said initially, it was about the entire process that followed. The defense, the clarification, and the attempt to control the narrative. As the segment progressed, Kimmel strung together more examples in quick succession. Statement, reaction, explanation, calm. Then the next statement. The cycle repeated with clear rhythm. One clip showed Trump's strong wording. The next showed Levitt or another spokesperson responding. Back and forth it went. When seen individually, these moments often disappeared into the daily news churn. But when edited together and slowed down, they formed a recognizable pattern that many viewers found striking. It wasn't hidden information or secret sources, just public clips everyone could access, presented in a new light. At one point, Kimmel paused and spoke directly to the audience at home. He asked where people were watching from, inviting a sense of shared experience. The studio crowd cheered as viewers from different parts of the country, and even internationally, felt momentarily included in the conversation. It was a small touch, but it strengthened the segment.
Look, the president is very frank and honest with everyone in this room. You've all seen it yourself. You've all experienced it yourselves, and I think
People weren't just passive watchers anymore. They felt like they were participating in connecting the dots. The laughter mixed with moments of quiet reflection. By the end, the monologue had moved beyond pure entertainment. It had become a form of cultural observation that encouraged viewers to think about how political messages are crafted, delivered, and defended. The impact extended well beyond the studio. Clips from the segment spread quickly across social media that night and into the following days. People shared not only the humorous parts but also the structural element, the careful side-by-side comparisons, the pacing, and the way the pattern was revealed without heavy narration. Many viewers commented that the segment made a complicated dynamic easier to understand. Instead of dense analysis or partisan shouting, it relied on simple visual contrasts, the original statement versus the later explanation. That clarity made it memorable and shareable. This kind of satire works differently from traditional news coverage. It doesn't feel like a direct attack. It feels more like holding up a mirror to something that was already there. When the same cycle is shown repeatedly, provocative comment, backlash, clarification as just a joke, it starts to shape how people perceive future events. They begin to recognize the rhythm before it fully plays out. Trump has often criticized late-night shows and mainstream media as biased or unfair. Yet moments like this demonstrate how observational humor can reach audiences in a unique way, embedding patterns into memory through repetition and contrast rather than confrontation. Of course, reactions to the segment split along familiar lines. Supporters of the president argued that Kimmel was unfairly amplifying normal political rhetoric while ignoring the substance of the controversy, the Democratic lawmaker's video, and what it might mean for military loyalty. Press secretaries like Levitt then faced the difficult task of threading the needle, remaining loyal to the administration's message while maintaining credibility in a skeptical press room. It is a high-pressure role that requires quick thinking and consistent framing under constant scrutiny. What began as one odd question in a White House briefing evolved, through Kimmel's deliberate pacing and editing, into a wider conversation about patterns, communication, and how messages change after they enter the public arena. The real power of the segment wasn't in changing minds overnight, but in making an existing dynamic clearer and harder to dismiss. Once a pattern is seen repeatedly, statement, reaction, explanation, it becomes difficult to unsee in future moments. Because sometimes the most important stories are not found in a single dramatic statement. They are found in what keeps happening again and again. And once you see that cycle clearly, side by side, slowed down for everyone to examine, it changes how you understand everything that comes after.